In a significant shift within U.S. foreign policy and communication strategy, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced the closure of the Counter Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference Hub at the State Department. This decision, which has raised eyebrows among diplomats and analysts alike, comes amid an ongoing global battle against disinformation and propaganda from adversarial nations, particularly China and Russia. The closure of this office, which had been tasked with tracking and countering disinformation campaigns from various foreign sources, was confirmed on April 16, 2025. Rubio's decision puts approximately 40 employees on leave, marking the first step towards a broader reduction in personnel and resources dedicated to this vital area of national security. Earlier in March, the State Department had already terminated around 80 contractors associated with the office, signaling a dramatic downsizing of efforts to combat foreign misinformation. Rubio justified the closure by stating that the office had spent millions of dollars to actively silence and censor the voices of Americans. However, critics argue that this move represents a unilateral disarmament in the ongoing information warfare being waged by hostile nation-states. James P. Rubin, a former State Department official, pushed back against Rubio's claims, asserting that the office had solely focused on international disinformation without intruding on domestic discourse. The ramifications of this closure extend beyond the immediate loss of personnel. The Counter Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference Hub was a successor to the Global Engagement Center, which had aimed to counteract propaganda from terrorist organizations and foreign adversaries. The dismantling of this office comes at a time when China and Russia have intensified their disinformation campaigns globally, raising concerns about the United States' ability to respond effectively. Compounding these challenges is the context of U.S. diplomatic relations with Europe, specifically regarding the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Concurrently, top U.S. officials, including Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, arrived in Paris to engage in high-level discussions with European leaders about Ukraine's plea for support in the face of Russian aggression. The urgency of these talks reflects a growing anxiety among European allies regarding the U.S. administration's approach to Moscow, especially after President Trump's recent frustrations with both Ukraine and Russia. As the conflict in Ukraine enters its fourth year, the stakes are high. Ukrainian officials arrived in Paris for discussions aimed at persuading the U.S. to adopt a firmer stance against Russian aggression. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha emphasized the importance of these talks, stating that they would address crucial security issues for Ukraine and Europe as a whole. The backdrop of these diplomatic engagements is marked by the U.S. administration's complex rhetoric concerning the war, which has shifted towards a tone that some perceive as more accommodating to Russia. This has raised alarms among European leaders and Ukrainian officials, who fear that a lack of decisive U.S. action could embolden Moscow further. As these developments unfold, the intersection of foreign policy, national security, and information warfare will likely shape the future landscape of U.S. diplomacy. The decision to close the State Department's disinformation office may not only impact domestic narratives but could also embolden adversaries in the international arena. Observers will be closely monitoring the consequences of these actions as they pertain to ongoing conflicts and the evolving dynamics of global diplomacy. The coming months will be critical in determining how the U.S. navigates these challenges and whether it can restore its credibility and influence on the world stage. In a series of significant developments within the U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's administration, recent events have unfolded that spotlight both international diplomatic efforts and internal investigations into security leaks. These incidents not only reflect the ongoing challenges facing the Biden administration but also highlight the complexities of managing sensitive information in an increasingly scrutinized political climate. On April 16, 2025, Secretary Hegseth engaged in a bilateral meeting with El Salvador's Minister of Defense, where discussions centered on enhancing defense cooperation and addressing regional security concerns. This meeting marks a pivotal moment as the U.S. seeks to bolster its relationships in Central America, particularly in the context of combating transnational crime and fostering stability in the region. Hegseth emphasized the importance of collaboration, stating, "Our partnership with El Salvador is vital for addressing the shared challenges we face in this hemisphere." However, amid these international efforts, Hegseth is also navigating the turbulent waters of an internal leak investigation that has recently claimed the attention of the Pentagon. Reports indicate that 3 senior aides, including longtime advisor Dan Caldwell, have been placed on administrative leave due to allegations of unauthorized disclosures of sensitive information. This investigation was prompted by concerns over potential breaches of classified data within the Department of Defense, leading officials to implement rigorous measures, including the use of polygraphs to ensure accountability. The implications of this investigation are far-reaching, as it not only raises questions about the handling of classified information but also casts a shadow over Hegseth's leadership. The scrutiny comes at a time when the administration is already under pressure to demonstrate its commitment to transparency and security. As a defense official noted, "The integrity of our operations depends on the trust and confidence of the American people. We must take these allegations seriously." In parallel, the political landscape is further complicated by ongoing discussions regarding the U.S. administration's approach to the crisis in Ukraine. Key officials, including Senator Marco Rubio, are currently in Paris negotiating with European counterparts on strategies to resolve the conflict. These diplomatic engagements reflect a concerted effort to unify international support against Russian aggression, emphasizing the need for a coordinated response. As the administration grapples with these multifaceted challenges, the outcome of the leak investigation and the success of diplomatic negotiations remain to be seen. The coming weeks will be crucial for Hegseth and his team as they aim to restore confidence within the Pentagon while navigating complex international relations. The interplay between internal security and external diplomacy will undoubtedly shape the trajectory of U.S. defense policy in the near future. In conclusion, the developments surrounding Secretary Hegseth's defense initiatives and the ongoing leak investigation highlight the precarious balance the administration must maintain between securing sensitive information and fostering international alliances. As stakeholders watch closely, the outcomes of these events could have lasting implications for U.S. defense strategies and its position on the global stage. Future updates will be essential in understanding how these dynamics unfold and influence the administration's approach to both domestic and international challenges. In a time marked by significant shifts in public health policy and political agendas, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation as Health and Human Services HHS Secretary has ignited a complex interplay of expectations, challenges, and ideological clashes. As a prominent figure in the Make America Healthy Again movement, Kennedy's approach to healthcare reform is being scrutinized, especially as he navigates the demands of his supporters while aligning with President Donald Trump's broader political objectives. Kennedy's elevation to HHS Secretary was met with enthusiasm from MAHA advocates, who viewed it as a chance to implement sweeping changes in healthcare and public health policy. However, the initial excitement has quickly given way to frustration among his base. Many supporters have expressed disappointment over his perceived inaccessibility and the slow pace of progress regarding key MAHA initiatives such as the cessation of mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccinations and the removal of fluoride from public drinking water. The tension between Kennedy's MAHA agenda and Trump's Make America Great Again platform exemplifies a broader ideological conflict. While Kennedy aims to challenge traditional healthcare norms, Trump's administration seems more focused on economic issues such as tariffs and immigration reform. This divergence has left Kennedy in a precarious position, attempting to fulfill the expectations of his supporters while also adhering to the priorities of the Trump administration. Adding to the complexity are emerging public health crises, including a measles outbreak and concerns regarding bird flu. These challenges have placed additional pressure on Kennedy, who is already grappling with staffing shortages and ongoing reorganization efforts within HHS that could eliminate around 20,000 jobs. The lack of a fully staffed leadership team exacerbates the difficulties he faces as he attempts to enact his vision for health reform.
Kennedy's commitment to the MAHA movement is evident particularly in his controversial stance on vaccines and environmental health issues.
He has publicly declared autism an epidemic and initiated a study to explore potential environmental causes, drawing skepticism from established researchers in the field. Critics have pointed out that Kennedy's timeline for the study raises doubts about its credibility, especially since most parents still support vaccination for their children. The dichotomy of Kennedy's goals, which include removing fluoride from drinking water and opposing mRNA vaccines, clashes with Trump's anti-regulatory stance and the general GOP focus on economic issues rather than health interventions. While Kennedy's supporters expect swift action, there is a palpable disconnect between their priorities and those of the broader electorate, who may be more concerned with immediate economic challenges than public health reforms. As Kennedy tries to strike a balance between the MAHA movement's more radical health initiatives and the Trump administration's agenda, he faces significant hurdles. The administration's push for workforce reductions may hinder his ability to implement the regulatory changes that MAHA proponents desire. Furthermore, the public's overwhelming support for vaccines, coupled with Kennedy's controversial positions, complicates his efforts to lead a cohesive health policy agenda. Despite these challenges, Kennedy's presence at HHS marks a critical juncture for the MAHA movement and public health discourse in America. His tenure will undoubtedly be tested in the coming months as he seeks to reconcile the competing interests of his supporters with the expectations of the Trump administration. The outcome of this balancing act could have far-reaching implications for the future of health policy in the United States, especially as the nation continues to grapple with pressing public health challenges. As Kennedy attempts to navigate these turbulent waters, the potential for significant shifts in health policy remains on the horizon, underscoring the evolving relationship between politics and public health. In a contentious display of political rhetoric and law enforcement, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has claimed that the family of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an alleged member of the MS-13 gang, is safer following his deportation to El Salvador. This assertion comes despite his wife Jennifer Vasquez-Sura publicly advocating for his return to the United States, insisting that he is a loving husband and father. The case, which has attracted significant media attention, underscores the complexities of immigration policy under the Trump administration and raises questions about the intersection of domestic violence allegations and immigration enforcement. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, 29, was deported last month due to what the Trump administration characterized as an administrative error. His deportation has become a flashpoint in the ongoing debate over immigration policy and public safety. Bondi, during an appearance on Fox News, asserted that his removal enhances safety in Maryland and for his family. "America is safer because he is gone," she stated emphatically, suggesting that the presence of Abrego Garcia posed a threat not only to his family but to the broader community. This claim stands in stark contrast to the pleas of Vasquez-Sura, who has argued that the protective order she filed against her husband in 2021 was a precautionary measure rather than an indication of ongoing domestic abuse. In her account, she explained that the incident leading to the protective order arose from a disagreement and they have since worked through their issues, even seeking counseling. Her insistence that their marriage has grown stronger highlights the complicated dynamics at play in cases of domestic violence, where the legal system often grapples with the nuances of familial relationships. The Department of Homeland Security has backed Bondi's stance, releasing information that purportedly connects Abrego Garcia to MS-13, including claims of his rank within the gang. However, his legal representatives have denied these allegations, emphasizing that he has never been charged with a crime in the U.S. and had been granted protective status prior to his deportation. This raises critical questions about the legal grounds for his removal and the implications for individuals facing similar circumstances. The situation has drawn the attention of various political figures, including Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who visited El Salvador to advocate for Abrego Garcia's release. His attempts to communicate with the Salvadoran government were met with resistance, indicating the complexities of international diplomacy intertwined with domestic immigration issues. The Trump administration's handling of Abrego Garcia's case reflects broader themes in its immigration policy, which has often been characterized by a focus on crime and public safety. Bondi's comments framed within this narrative align with the administration's efforts to portray a tough stance on crime,
particularly relating to gang activity.
However, critics argue that such rhetoric can oversimplify the realities faced by individuals entangled in the immigration system and can lead to unjust outcomes. As the debate continues, the implications of this case extend beyond Abrego Garcia and his family. It touches upon the broader issues of immigration enforcement, the legal rights of individuals in the U.S., and the role of domestic violence in immigration cases. The administration's insistence on portraying Abrego Garcia as a dangerous criminal despite his lack of criminal charges raises ethical concerns about the treatment of immigrants and the potential for misrepresentation in the media. Looking ahead, the outcome of Abrego Garcia's case may influence future immigration enforcement practices, particularly regarding individuals with complex personal histories. As the legal and political battles unfold, the discourse surrounding immigration and crime will likely continue to evolve, prompting further scrutiny of the policies and narratives that shape these critical issues. The case serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between public safety and individual rights in an increasingly polarized political landscape. In a striking display of the complexities surrounding the Trump administration's economic policies, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent finds himself navigating a turbulent landscape marked by significant personal financial decisions and contentious tariff strategies. As the former hedge fund manager settles into his role, recent events have raised questions about his judgment and the implications of the administration's aggressive financial maneuvers for both markets and political integrity.
Bessent's foray into real estate has been particularly controversial.
Earlier this year, he purchased a lavish waterfront property in Charleston, South Carolina for $4.85 million through a shell company known as Palmetto 2020 Trust LLC. Just a month later, he sold the property for $4.75 million,
incurring a loss of $100,000.
While real estate transactions of this nature may be commonplace among the wealthy, the timing and circumstances surrounding this deal, occurring as he took office, have drawn scrutiny. Critics speculate whether this was a mere personal investment gone awry or part of a broader pattern of questionable financial behavior, raising the specter of potential conflicts of interest. In the same vein, Bessent has been a vocal proponent of the administration's tariffs, which have sent shockwaves through the stock market, wiping out over $6 trillion in value.
During a recent appearance on NBC's Meet the Press, Bessent downplayed recession fears, asserting that the administration is focused on building long-term economic fundamentals.
There doesn't have to be a recession, he asserted, referencing robust job growth despite the turbulent market conditions.
Critics, however, have pointed to the steep tariffs as a significant risk to economic stability, with bipartisan concerns mounting over their efficacy and possible implications for inflation and consumer prices. The administration's tariff agenda has not only incited market volatility but has also drawn sharp criticism from Democratic lawmakers. A letter signed by nearly 50 members of Congress led by Senator Elizabeth Warren accuses the administration of fostering a corrupt environment where tariffs could be misused for personal gain and political favoritism. They argue that the administration's handling of tariffs resembles a corrupt scheme designed to reward loyalists and punish adversaries, citing specific exemptions granted to certain industries as evidence of this troubling trend. As Bessent and other administration officials continue to advocate for the tariffs, they face a growing backlash from both political opponents and economic analysts. The potential for insider trading and conflicts of interest looms large, particularly as Bessent's financial dealings come under the microscope. Critics argue that the administration's current approach invites corruption, with tariffs being leveraged as tools of political patronage rather than genuine economic strategy. Looking ahead, Bessent's ability to navigate these turbulent waters will be crucial not only for his political future but also for the broader economic landscape.
As the administration doubles down on its tariff policies amidst mounting market concerns, the implications for American consumers and the integrity of financial governance will undoubtedly remain hot topics. The coming months will reveal whether the predicted economic boom materializes or if the current strategies lead to deeper instability, further complicating an already fraught political landscape. In an era marked by escalating tensions over international trade, the Trump administration's tariffs have ignited fierce debate on both economic and ethical fronts. As President Trump continues to exert his influence over U.S. trade policy, recent revelations highlight a growing concern among lawmakers regarding the potential for corruption inherent in these tariff measures. This juxtaposition of economic strategy and ethical scrutiny has brought the administration's handling of tariffs into the spotlight, prompting questions about their long-term implications. On April 17, 2025, a coalition of nearly 50 Democratic lawmakers spearheaded by Senator Elizabeth Warren sent a pointed letter to key administration officials, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The correspondence accused the Trump administration of creating a corrupt scheme through its tariff policies, suggesting that these measures invite undue influence and self-serving behavior among officials. The letter articulates a clear warning: tariffs are inviting corruption not only through quid pro quo arrangements but also through officials' personal investments. The Democrats' concerns are rooted in previous instances where Trump's tariff strategy appeared to benefit his political allies while penalizing adversaries. For instance, the recent exemption of smartphones and electronics from tariffs has drawn scrutiny, particularly as companies like Apple, whose CEO Tim Cook has notably fostered a relationship with Trump, saw their stock prices soar following this announcement. This exemption raises ethical questions about whether such decisions are influenced by personal connections rather than economic rationale. As the minority party in Congress, Democrats face limitations in their ability to compel responses from the administration. Nevertheless, their letter underscores a broader critique of Trump's approach to economic governance, especially as it pertains to the integrity of trade practices. The lawmakers are demanding clarity on how the administration plans to prevent the misuse of tariffs for personal gain, with a deadline set for responses by April 29. In parallel developments, Lutnick defended the administration's broad tariff strategy, even extending it to remote territories such as the Heard and McDonald Islands, which are home to no human inhabitants but are still subject to U.S. tariffs. His rationale, that leaving any area off the tariff list could allow countries like China to exploit loopholes, has drawn incredulity. Critics argue that such measures not only lack common sense but also threaten economic stability, as they could exacerbate tensions with global trading partners. The ramifications of these tariff policies are profound. They not only risk alienating allies but also pose a threat to the U.S. economy. Experts have warned that the current trajectory could lead to increased prices for consumers and a potential slowdown in trade, further straining relations with countries that have already expressed discontent over the tariffs. As the political landscape evolves, the ongoing discourse surrounding tariffs is likely to shape the trajectory of U.S. trade policy. With the 2024 elections approaching, how the administration responds to these concerns could play a critical role in defining its legacy and impact on the global economic stage. While the immediate future is fraught with uncertainty, one thing remains clear: the intersection of trade policy and ethical governance will continue to be a defining issue in American politics. The administration's actions in the coming weeks may ultimately determine whether these tariffs are viewed as a necessary strategy for economic protection or as a gateway to corruption and self-interest.